Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode, episode number 115 today for the Italian Grand Prix. If you guys did miss the previous one at the Belgium GP, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, because that was a very dramatic episode. A lot happened in there, 11 DNFs, a lot of them caused by one entire incident on lap 1. Of course, then some rain in the air, some drama. We got nearly a shock winner with Lewis Hamilton at the end in the Ford GP car, but in the end of it, spoiler alert, it was Antonio Giovinazzi that gained a massive advantage. Myself and Gasly, well, especially Gasly, obviously, were late drama with him with an engine failure, losing a lot of ground in terms of the standings. Even we did, of course, but we did come back to limit the damage as much as possible. But it was Giovinazzi as a big winner, and I guess you could say also Leclerc getting up there in P2, Verstappen losing out a tiny bit, because for once it was actually Hamilton being the star of the show for Ford. But it was quite an out of the ordinary Grand Prix, so tough to say really, with Giovinazzi. He's been quiet maybe before the Hungarian Grand Prix, had a bit of a slower Austrian and British Grand Prix, you can see there, and then has bounced back in the last two races, but just showing you how quickly things can change in a season that is so close, and things might be changing for us going into Monza, because we do have some very worn out control electronics. We noted that at the British Grand Prix, that they're wearing out quite a bit, and it's a bit of a weird one, because we've never had this before in previous seasons, where just the control electronics have worn out so much, but we have to change those. And looking at my engine supply, we're also going to need a new internal combustion engine, because the three we've got right now are all on very high percentages, to the point where if I'm using them in the last couple of rounds, they will start to get into the yellow zone kind of midway through qualifying, midway through a race, and obviously that's going to affect performance out and out. And Monza does seem like one of the best places to potentially take this kind of penalty, to be towards the back end of the grid. I know historically we've actually waited a little bit and taken the penalty at Singapore, actually, because ironically it's Singapore, even though it's a street circuit, it's quite a tough one. We've actually always done well at coming back through, but this season, in this final season of this game, Singapore is the sprint race, so we don't have as much time to come back through, whereas Monza, this is going to be a full race, the usual 50%, so we'll go ahead, take these penalties then, and see what we can do with obviously that very powerful slipstream we have on the F1 game. But first and foremost, qualifying, just to kind of see where we can put this car up the grid. Having had a very tricky race last time out, just wanting to build some confidence around the circuit and see how we stack up really as we go through the sessions and the track warms up and comes towards everyone really as the rubber gets laid down lap after lap. But here we are on the first run in Q1 to hopefully just get us through as a formality into the second part of qualifying there. The two Red Bulls right up there, but Hamilton off the back of, well, nearly a race win and the second place in the end of it. Top of the session though, so clearly showing again how that kind of, confidence, that focus and that momentum kind of coding works for the AI. They do well, they get results, and they continue to try and build on it if they can. Of course, some luck comes into it, things outside their control, but generally speaking, if they can get a good run going, they'll try and build on it. And the same is happening for Lewis Hamilton, it would seem, there, as he's right up there, and we've not seen, he's been there a few times, I guess, with Verstappen, and mainly as of late, I think he's been a bit more equal to Verstappen. But last race was really the first glimpse of us thinking, hang on a minute, could he actually go win a race? Unfortunately, obviously, Giovinazzi stole the thunder and took the lead of the championship, showing ever that he's determined to try and win back-to-back championships. And it's the first time, really, actually, in this game, that one of the AI rivals, who's been fighting me for a championship in the previous season, has actually stuck around to fight us for it again. I guess Russell was also one of them, but in terms of someone I've not signed as a teammate, who stayed as an AI rival in a different AI team, Giovinazzi is a rarity of still being right here fighting for another Drivers' World Championship. Into the top 10 shootout then, Leclerc, this man in second place in the standings, has not made it through there, you may have seen. He got knocked out in P11, so that is going to be him on the back foot. The rest of us though, myself, Gasly, Gio and Verstappen, and also Hamilton, even though he's not in the standings, though, he's still going to be an annoyance there if he's right at the sharp end, are through. And also the same with George Russell as we now go on our outlap then for our first flying lap. We let Schumacher through because he actually went earlier on in the session, so he's on a flyer right now. You can kind of tell as he goes quite quickly through the first few turns. So we're just preparing our outlap then and trying to see if we can try and just mix it up maybe and annoy some people maybe on this grid. But obviously taking a grid slot in the end of it, though, will have the penalty that will push us down the order. But you're about to see a very strange occurrence because we are here on our flying lap now. Schumacher is on an in lap and he doesn't know where he's going, and into Ascari, we just get blindsided by him in the middle of the circuit. We try to dodge him out the way. I was trying to second guess where he was going as I try to get a bit of a slipstream off him, and then he just moves, well, you can see there, left, right, and lo and behold, I'm in the Tech Pro barrier, so it wouldn't matter in the end because we were going to have to take a penalty anyway, two penalties that were 210 places, I believe, so that would have seen us at the back anyway. But now, having crashed the car in Q3, we don't even get a chance to see where we would have been in the top 10 shootout, and instead I'm going back to the garage thinking, okay, why don't we just take everything in hindsight, actually. But that was a very, very weird crash with Mick Schumacher there. I let him through, you know, being kind on our outlap, and then on his in-lap, he just didn't know where to go. And it's a bit more frustrating in terms of retiring, because I didn't get to see it live happen about Lewis Hamilton getting a bloody pole position in the Ford Performance GP car. George Russell, his current actual teammate, they're never teammates so far in this series, but he's alongside him in the Ferrari, and the Ferrari's come out of nowhere because Ocon got knocked out in Q2, but George Russell, feeling the home support, has taken the Ferrari onto the front row, and so at the start of this race, it is going to be Ford versus Ferrari, just like that very famous Le Mans battle. This is going to be the battle for the Italian Grand Prix, potentially, along with one of the home favourites, Antonio Giovinazzi, on the second row, alongside Verstappen. We're down there in P10. Gasly didn't have the best qualifying, although it's very, very fine, so that could have been easily like one corner mistake for Gasly, and he could have been, you know, far further up on the second row. But for us in P10, as we go back in between the screens from qualifying to the race, I decided to take every single component, because I actually will admit, going into qualifying, I actually had a bit of a brain fog that I forgot that one engine change of those components is 10 places anyway. It's not 5, so I would have been at the back of the grid anyway, so we may as well take all of them in one go at the Italian Grand Prix, and that'll see us through to the end of the season. But it's going to be a bit of a longer race for us then to get back to the forefront, but we may have some real great action at the sharp end there with the surprise of Hamilton versus Russell on the front row. Let's go to the grid.
We're back in Italy once again for another round of the Formula One World Championship. And what a great race is in store for us today here at the oldest circuit on the calendar. Monza hosted its first race all the way back in 1922, with top speeds up to 215 miles per hour and an average lap speed of around 155 miles per hour. Monza's reputation as one of the fastest circuits in the sport is well earned. We have 11 corners on this 3.6 mile track, with the best overtaking chance coming into the heavy braking zone of the Turn 1 chicane. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here today, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
But from the moment qualifying's over, you start to feel the adrenaline in your body build up and the buzz in your stomach as you anticipate the rundown into Turn 1. It's all a bit like going into battle, and the unknown situation makes you nervous. Those pre-race nerves are a good thing. The day you don't have them means that you don't care anymore. And of course, you have to make sure that all the procedures are second nature to you, so that they're not taking up too much of your capacity.
Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's race. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, just ahead of George Russell, who starts this event from P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Giovinazzi, Verstappen, Felipe Drugovich, and Sainz. Gasly, Mick Schumacher, Bottas and Charles Leclerc, Norris, Joe, Esteban Ocon and Lundgaard, Tsunoda, Stroll, Marcus Armstrong and Daniel Ticktum. Eilert, Aitken, Matsushita and the owner driver. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
So it's race time here at Monza. We are at the back of the grid. It is overcast, but unlike Spa, there will be no rain later on in this race. It'll just be getting a little bit more clearer and sunnier out there. So that's good news for us, because otherwise that would have made this challenge a lot harder. We're getting, back into some good points today if there was some rain involved. So in the dry, we just need to get our head down, have a very clean opening couple of laps. Very easy, in the first lap to try and do too much and come off worse here around Monza, and then just work our way up, use the speed we know the car should have, especially in a straight line, with the game slipstream mechanics, to try and get as far up the order as we can, at least try and, you'd hope, match Pierre Gasly and get back to where he is. If we can do that, I think that would be a very, very valiant effort, but we've got a very interesting battle at the sharp end, as it's going to be the rundown into turn 1, the Ford versus the Ferraris. We go to 5 red lights here at Monza. The Italian Grand Prix is underway, lights out, and for us from last place on the grid, it's a long 27 laps ahead of us. Now, easy does it into turn 1. We got an okay start, but it's just about trying to roll the car through nice and easily and gain as many positions as we can, but we didn't go for the move on Armstrong there, because I definitely would have got chopped off into turn 1, instead opting to make the move after the first couple of turns there. Ahead of us, there was a 3-wide moment between Tsunoda, Lundgaard, and I believe Lance Stroll in the Porsche. Can we make another last move here, left and right? And instead, we go to the inside, and then Tsunoda, narrow stuff between ourselves and the McLaren, and even going to the back of Lundgaard there, to really judge that correctly, but able to get one more position up into P16. Meanwhile, though, it's still Hamilton then from pole position in first place, ahead of Russell in the Ferrari. Giovinazzi, your championship leader, the reigning world champion as well, in third place. Verstappen up to P4, Sainz P5, Drogovic, Gasly down in P7, and then you've got Leclerc, obviously, who was knocked out in Q2 in P11. Obviously, was elevated anyway by one free position to myself, as we watch on Gasly making a move on Drogovic, and you've got Verstappen trying to make a move on Antonio Giovinazzi in the background. I believe Gasly has got the move done on the Brazilian. He's up into P6. Verstappen was unable to get Giovinazzi, but Russell may just get Hamilton. It is going to be wheel to wheel between the Ferrari and the Ford, and Hamilton's on the right. George Russell has got the better racing line, but no, doesn't get the acceleration there. Got compromised a little bit on the curb, and Hamilton will maintain the lead for now. And whilst that was happening, that exact moment, this was what was happening just a few moments ago with myself, Ocon, and you've got Guan Yu Zhou. They're in, so 2 free positions. We get the slipstream on 1 and 2 cars, so that's basically 4 overtakes done in one short amount of straight there, as those 2 cars, Guan Yu Zhou and Ocon, clearly had to pit for some damage maybe, and that's what I said. The opening lap here at Monza can be very treacherous. You have to watch out for the simulation damage, even the AI on AI battles. But look at this, as you've got Hamilton looking to defend, and it's so bloody close. I don't even know how Russell didn't go into the back of him there, as he really chops off George Russell into the brake zone. Meanwhile, some great fighting going on between the Mercedes and the Red Bull there. Drogovic defending Bottas successfully for now. Gasly pulling away and pressurising Carlos Sainz. So Gasly showing, settling down. The car does have some speed there, and he'll be looking to try and get past Carlos, and then on towards Giovinazzi, who is down in P4. We haven't seen it, but Verstappen has overtaken the Italian, and he's up into P3. We saw how close he was to Russell even, so it might be 2 Fords versus the Ferrari. So it might be a gang-up situation. That's going to obviously put it into favour for the Ford guys, because they have 2 cars versus 1. You can maybe do something clever on the strategy or slipstreaming, and Russell's just going to have to try and attack and defend at the same time. Meanwhile, for us, down in P12, looking to get after Norris, who's right on the back of Schumacher. Ahead of them, a very close battle between Leclerc, Bottas, and Drogovic, as Drogovic goes on the inside of his old team there, and Leclerc trying to get in the middle of it, and you see ahead of right ahead of us, Norris making a really nice move on Schumacher. It's 3 abreast up the road as Leclerc tries to make a double overtake on the Mercedes and the Red Bull. Norris still defending Schumacher. Can we get in the middle of it and get amongst it? Because even those 3 ahead of her, these two are quite close, you know. So it's almost like a 5-way battle because, you know, one more corner and sequence like that and we could all be bunched up together. But instead, we'll make the move through the subtle right-hander curve on the inside of the McLaren and then look to try and get Schumacher, and getting a bit of PTSD from qualifying, moving left and right, not sure where Schumacher's going, and it was the same on Saturday, but we're able to make the move and a lunge on the outside. Thankfully, deep breath, and we can now chase after the cars ahead of us rather than worrying. And this was, again, whilst this was happening live, at the same time, up top of the road, we were having this 3-way battle for the lead as Russell tries to go on the inside of both Ford cars. They're too busy squabbling against each other, and so in the end of it, Russell actually uses that to his advantage. So whilst I was overtaking Norris and Schumacher, Russell was having a ding-dong battle with Max Verstappen now, as Hamilton is pushed down to P3. Verstappen is the lead Ford, and he's actually going to lead the race because he gets the place back on the Ferrari. So it's still Ford, Ferrari, Ford, but the two have swapped positions. Verstappen now is in the driving seat, but Russell for a moment there looked really handy to actually push away, but Verstappen kept at it and was able to get him on the inside before that chicane. So now the question is, will Russell come back at him? You can see everyone's bunching up there as well. So you've got Giovinazzi in there, Carlos Sainz in the lead Red Bull, and then Gasly just about on that tail end train. So these guys need to be very wary. You know, Verstappen and Russell need to play it smart for their sake of not getting caught up in a battle that's going to turn into a 5-way fight, as we now see Giovinazzi under pressure from the Red Bull, you know. Sainz looking to get in the middle of it there and go around the outside at Parabolica. Meanwhile, Leclerc just made a tasty move on Drogovic. Meanwhile, back down the road, you've got Sainz still trying to overtake Giovinazzi, and look at George Russell go, nearly dipping a tyre onto the grass as the Ferrari goes down the inside. Verstappen, though, giving him a real harsh squeeze, but the Ferrari's defiant, and he continues to still be there. It's going to be deja vu as the two go side by side once again, down to the next left and then right. Verstappen on the inside again, and will he have the better racing line? I think he surely will be over the curb, and he skips over it, and he is going to maintain first place. Meanwhile, we are now right there, just behind Leclerc. He made an overtake on Drogovic, but Drogovic got the place back, and these two are now fighting side by side, and we're just watching on and waiting for the right time. Bit of oversteer as well, getting on there as the tyre wear creeps in lap 5 now. Drogovic squeezed out, though, by Leclerc. Can we get the double toe? DRS open, little bit of ERS usage, being a bit wary of how much space we've got. 3 wide down that straight to Ascari is not usually the best choice to make, because that's such a narrow pathway, but we make it work, inches away from the Armco barrier, and we're into P8. So that's very good progress. 5 laps into this race, up into P8, but now this is where the challenge begins. You know, you've got both Red Bulls looking pretty fast there, so Bottas is even going to be a challenge to chase after and actually overtake. And then these guys, they're, you know, well, they're fighting with each other. That's the only saving grace. As you can see, Russell now is defending Hamilton as Hamilton tries to make it a 1-2 for Ford in Ferrari's back garden. And from the historical significance of these two teams fighting, that would be the worst case scenario for Ferrari. That would very much irk the team to no end. But no, Russell stands firm. But lap 7 and progress is a bit slower. We're still chasing after Bottas, but Leclerc, he's keeping up with us. He's well within 1 second. We're 2 seconds away from Drogovic, but Leclerc has just stayed with me, and we've got some understeer now kicking in with these tyres. They're feeling pretty second hand, and I'm already considering maybe we try, like we did in Silverstone, going on to the hard compound of tyre, because I think for us, we've gone so hard in the first couple of laps of this stint as Leclerc powers past us with DRS that maybe our tyres are feeling worse than the others ahead of us. And I just think, you know, it worked really well for us at Silverstone. Why not try it again, go on to hards, and we know we can lean on that tyre a little bit harder around here, and then maybe that would pay dividends for us at the end of the race. We know there's no rain involved, so we can guarantee that by the end of the race, the hard compound may be in a better shape. But at the moment, we'll continue to try and just fight Leclerc, because we'll come back in pretty easily. It's not like we're losing time, but we're definitely coming it close there on the right. So fine. Bit of contact made with Leclerc even there on the rear end. We're going to go the switchback move from right to left. And so what should have been an easy overtake back into turn one ended up being a bit of a scrap there with the contact we made. So no love lost between myself and Leclerc, former teammates from that very failed venture for him when we were powered by Porsche in Season 5. Meanwhile, up the road, so we've got Gasly has overtaken Sainz then, and so it's the two Red Bulls next up. But we are going to come in lap 9 onto the hard tyres. This is earlier than I wanted, earlier than maybe the game was thinking I was going to come in, and earlier than all the AI ahead of us. But we're going to take this gamble like we did at Silverstone and go for the hard compound, and hope that towards the end of the race at least it's going to be the better choice for us. I think initially in the first couple of laps we will be feeling quite slow. I will admit that. We had that at Silverstone, but that's fine. Hopefully by the end of it, it will come back towards us. But I just felt like, we weren't catching Bottas that much, and he's in a Red Bull that has been a bit slower than our car so far this season. So the fact we weren't catching him and I was fighting Leclerc just meant that, I didn't want to be stuck in that situation and fighting Leclerc and not catching Bottas so much that we just lose the chance to gain on all these guys in the top 7 as we continue to watch them have a scrap. And look at that, Hamilton going for the ballsy move round the outside, and he's actually made it. It's a 1-2 for Ford. Russell down to P3. Giovinazzi's lurking around. Will the Ferrari get the place back into turn 1? I don't know. Then it's Gasly, the two Red Bull cars, Leclerc. Norris is coming in now. Drogovic, and there's a whole gaggle of cars still fighting out. Schumacher, Lundgaard, Tsunoda very, very close together. Tsunoda going for a move. Oh, Stroll's gone for a move and got it all wrong. And then into turn 1, there's a T-bone collision because the Canadian's got it all crossed up with DRS open. His rear end sent out, and he's completely got it wrong. And there's going to be a full course safety car now. We're going to power past the McLaren, even though we're going under or over the delta time. But we're now going to slow it down just about into turn 1 there. We're P16 though at the moment, and now the full course safety car's out. So that means a free pit stop for everyone else. Does that mean we're going to lose a load of positions here? So we may have just got screwed over massively by that crash with the Porsche. Let's see. It's not like a full free pit stop because I was already, I'd already done my stop and I was already getting some time. So we are going to actually get a position over Bottas, but that's probably more so because he had to double stack behind Sainz. We've actually lost a position to Leclerc, and Russell's lost out as well because he's down to P4, so I don't know what exactly happened in the pit lane, but Russell's lost out big time, and Russell's slow! Oh! Russell's slow for a reason! Russell! He's going to be out the race. He's gone from fighting for the race lead versus the two Ford cars to now under the safety car. His engine goes up in smokes and he is out of the Italian Grand Prix. That is a disaster. A disaster for Ferrari. Oh, that's going to be heartbreaking for Russell. He must have been relishing that fight at the forefront, but now he's out. We get one free position up into P7 now as we look to try and re-overtake Leclerc on this safety car restart. He's on mediums. Everyone else has gone to hard tyres, so Leclerc may be the odd one out here, and in the end of it, we're actually on the same strategy as everyone else. So going into the hards, in the end of it, has really not looked like a bad call, to be honest. So now can we try and get Leclerc into turn 1? The later we leave this move, the better he'll be in position because that medium tyre will heat up quicker. So we're going to try and get the move done in dust into turn 1. Give him some room to work with. Yellow flags behind as I think some cars concertinaed up, but we've got the move on Leclerc. We're up into P6. So at the sharp end, Verstappen still leads them, but Hamilton even got screwed over by the double stack under the safety car because he's down to P5. It's instead Giovinazzi and Gasly now fighting for P2. And look at the dive from Gasly. That's desperation to claw back some points in the championship, having had the engine failure he had at Spa car. It's now his turn to make use of other people having failures. He's up into P2 that was occupied by George Russell, and that was a real nice move, to be fair to Pierre. Real late on the brakes versus Giovinazzi, but those two will surely be scrapping away just as Hamilton and Sainz might be here. And can we try and use that to maybe get another double overtake cheekily done at the same time? Monza is one of those circuits where on the game you have to try and just be patient, wait for the right time where the AI is squabbling way too much versus each other, and then slip by like nothing. But let's see, can we make a move on the outside? It's going to be very, very close. These two having a real good scrap now, as they both are still side by side through that section. Hamilton, even though he went over the bump on the inside there, gets the better exit through mid-corner, and he's able to get up into P4. But now, can we send it on Sainz close to the grass? We actually dip a tyre onto the grass there, but we're not getting scared off the road, and we'll finish the move later on the brakes into P5, and we're looking to not waste any time. Lap 17, we're going to go for a huge dive bomb on the outside of Hamilton and kind of channel almost a bit of Lewis Hamilton energy into that corner, as he used to love a late lunge into turn 1 at Monza. But this time we tried on the outside there, didn't quite work out because we had to give him the room to work with at least, and that meant he got some great traction, as the Fords have done this entire race. But we'll play a bit of chicken there into the next left-hander, and we're not going to back out of that. Hamilton will back out. He knew we weren't going to give up that position, and we're into P4. And by lap 22, we're chasing after Gasly and Giovinazzi, who are still fighting, but Dan Ticktum is now out of this race, and that's another safety car, a late one now, and so it's going to be like a 3-lap sprint by the end of this one. And it's, a parabolica in a kind of similar fashion to what Leclerc did in real life in 2020, although this time Ticktum gets the rear end step down. He's going backwards into that wall on the outside there, but easy to do, and it's an AI mistake for Dan Ticktum that brings out the safety car. So it's Verstappen who will lead us away then. Lap 24, we go green again. This has been hard and fast action here today at the Italian Grand Prix, and there may be more action to come. Can we get Giovinazzi for P3? This would be some comeback from last place to the podium, as there was definitely some contact there. Did you see that? Into turn 1, there was definitely some carbon fibre, as the concertina effect bunched everyone up there. Giovinazzi's lost out to Hamilton. He's down to P5 because we squeezed him out so much. So Hamilton gets up into P4 thanks to us, but we are into a podium position. We've only got, 2 racing laps then after this one. It was always going to be tricky to catch after these two because they've had some really supreme pace today. So having fallen at the last hurdle last episode, this time round Ford Performance GP will be booking in their first win in Formula 1 here on this game. Max Verstappen will be the one that takes victory. Verstappen wins after so long in this series, and he wins it for Ford. Hamilton, he'll be gutted he couldn't bring glory to them last episode, but this makes up for it for the team. They get the win. Verstappen gets the win and puts himself firmly in this title fight, you gotta say.
Incredible result today.
Taking care of the car was absolutely vital today.
Haas are no doubt happy with today's performance, having secured the win this weekend. And our drivers are making their way out for the podium celebrations as we speak.
What a win for Max Verstappen. What a win. And to do it in Ferrari's backyard, that will be so stinging to them as a brand, as a team with a history they've had with the Ford Motor Company. But for the team as well, to get victory stolen away in the last sector of the last lap, last episode by Giovinazzi, this will be of massive comfort to them. And then look at that. Verstappen with finally his first win of this season. He gets up into first place. He's been probably the most consistent man this entire season, you know. I think we've been pretty consistent, but he's been on a different level, and now he's got his first win. He's right up there, 1 point between himself and Antonio Giovinazzi. Then a bit further back is Gasly, myself, and Leclerc today with a quieter race loses out his second place from last episode. But for us in the constructors, we're still first, but Ford do close the gap. That very strong race result today. Porsche down to P3, but yeah, I mean, it looks like more and more that this is going to involve multiple drivers in terms of the Drivers' World Championship fight right to the end, because you just have so many different variables. But Verstappen and Giovinazzi and even Leclerc to an extent, though, that even though there's all these variables, along with myself and Gasly, we're all the kind of, it seems like that's the pattern. Us 5 drivers seem to be just always there, scoring at least a couple of points to keep ourselves ticking over in the standings, even with the adversity and things not going our way. Guys, that was a very, very solid, I think, recovery drive from last place there. Did what we had to do. We've taken our penalties now. That should see us through to the end of the season now in terms of penalties. So just about what everyone else does in terms of grid penalties later on potentially. But that's us done. And that's a very good recovery, I must say, from last place, especially with how chaotic things were in the middle of that one, with how close the fighting was. Easy for cars to get damage and whatnot. So if you did enjoy it, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.